Hi, welcome back. I'm Doug Andrew. In this episode, we're going to sort of connect the dots about what rebalancing means. You've been listening and learning and understanding that rebalancing can tweak the rate of return for you and your clients that you're helping with Indexed Universal Life to move from maybe a 7-8% rate of return up to a 9 or 10% rate of return or even greater. This is where I want you to be able to answer the question at the end of this episode. Well, golly, if I just use indexing, what would be my average return? And what would it improve by if I rebalanced every year? A lot of people don't even know what it means to rebalance. Most of the time, asset managers, financial planners will talk about rebalancing a portfolio, and they're talking about your money in the stock market, balancing between stocks and bonds and blah, 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 blah. We're talking about a similar concept, but it's with very safe strategies within Indexed Universal Life where your money's not in the market. So I want you to pay attention right now to the different ways that I explain this. I'm going to use examples from the worst decade since the Great Depression, because if it works well in the worst period of time, hopefully it'll do better for them. And as we go through this, you're going to understand how your returns in the worst decade would have gone from 7.23% up to 10.07% by using rebalancing. So how does this all work? What does it mean to rebalance your IUL portfolio? Most of the time, we meet with clients on an annual basis, and we do an annual review. Now, some people like to come in quarterly. They have several insurance policies. They call them buckets. Again, I use that metaphor, and I have some pretty sophisticated clients that are worth millions. Some are billionaires, and it's sort of funny how they get on the phone with their accountant, and they say, now, I'm in here with my advisor. Doug, how much money do I have in my third bucket? And their accountant goes, what? Bucket? So the metaphor of a bucket simplifies things. And so some of our clients have 7 buckets, 15 buckets, and they are diversifying because if they maximum fund their first policy, that will just grow, and there's no limit to what it can grow to. There's only a limit to how much you can put into it. And if you maximum fund it, you're not allowed to put more money into it. And most successful people, a nice problem is they have more money. And so they come back. And usually within 2 or 3 years, most of my clients would open a second bucket, a third bucket, a fourth bucket, and a universal life policy. And this came because of annual reviews. So on the average, every 3 years, most of my clients would open a new policy because they had more money. Nice problem, right? So after a client has been doing this for 15, 20, 30 years, many of them have 5 buckets, 10 buckets on them, 5 or 10 on their spouse, some on their kids. It's amazing. So sometimes they like to come in quarterly if they have a lot of money, but at least on an annual basis. And this is when we would rebalance and make sure that we can make any adjustments in case the unlikely event, about 5% of the time, something happened to them and they had to stop. They had to coast. They had to adjust it down. But 95% of our annual reviews, they actually had more money to put in than they thought they were going to have when they started out, because most people are conservative that way. So when you start to diversify your client's portfolio, you know you can diversify by putting buckets with different insurance companies. You can use different products. But within the same product with an insurance company, you've learned how to diversify by linking some to this index, the S&P, some to the Dow, some to the Russell 2000, some to the BUD-B or whatever. And so you can diversify a lot just within one insurance policy. That's why I love about Universal Life. It's so flexible. And so as you do that, you begin to balance their portfolio. So every year when they come in, we go, what does this year look like? Now, let's say there was a huge turn down in the market due to a terrorist attack, maybe a disease, a pandemic, or we had a recession. There were taxes went up and went through the roof because of this or whatever. There's all kinds of things that affect fiscal and monetary policy and who's in office, whether it's Republican, Democrat, and president in the presidency, the executive branch versus the House of Representatives versus the Senate. And so depending upon those dynamics, that's what usually happens with a lot of tax laws, and that's when the Federal Reserve will sometimes adjust interest rates. So based upon a lot of factors, if you're savvy, if you're in the know, when your clients come in, you sort of analyze, well, what does it feel like? What do you feel? Oh, I think the economy is going to go into a tailspin. Well, yeah, I can see your point there. Do you want to move all your money over after the linking date to the general account portfolio? Instead of earning zero if the market does crash, you'll at least earn 4 or 5%. Now, some people say, oh, yeah, that's what I want to do. Others say, well, maybe half of my money, let's do that. The other half, things could turn around. So let's keep it in the S&P or the Dow Jones. It's amazing how many times clients will have their favorite indices that they like to choose. Many times they will say, what would you recommend? Now, again, I show them the advantages and the disadvantages, and I let them choose themselves. And then if they say, well, what would you do? And I say, well, this is what I would do, but I'm not you. Maybe your risk tolerance is less or more than mine. So once they understand the caps, the floors, the linking periods, how they work, the smoothing periods, or whatever it is, then they can say, I want 20% of my money the next year allocated to this one, 20% to this one, 20% to this one, and you let them pick and choose. And you can do that on one sheet of paper. You can do it online. In fact, pretty soon they'll learn how to do this themselves. So what does this mean? When we have an annual review, sometimes my sons who meet with their clients, they will sit down right there on their computer, pull up their maximum funded index universal life, and they'll know exactly how much room they have to put in more money and so forth, and they'll plan for that, and they'll say, hey, do you want to change the allocation? Do you want a link? Oh, we have to wait till this date. Generally, they wait until the annual linking period is over to see what the rate of return was actually accredited during that linking period, because sometimes markets are volatile. And so then they'll reallocate. This is a very powerful strategy that I want you to learn in greater detail when my sons teach this on some of the advanced episodes, and they'll actually use their screenshots as they're going through and showing you how they change the allocation and rebalance a portfolio in real time on an actual client screen, perhaps, okay? So let me use this example of the worst decade. Rebalancing did this. If I had $1 million, let's say, of cash value in the year 2000, and without adding a dime, I've already told you that if I put it in an indexed universal life insurance policy during that worst decade, 2000 to 2010, let's go, I would have had 5 years that the market lost. That was a horrible decade, because most decades, there's usually 7 up years compared to 3 down years. So 5 years, I would have not made a dime, but I wouldn't have lost. 0 was my hero. The other 5 years, I would have made money, and only 2 of those 5 years would I have capped out. The caps were 16 and 17% back then on the primary products that I owned. And so during the worst decade, at the end of 2010, most Americans who started out with $1 million in the year 2000, they saw the million go down to 600,000 from 2001 to 2003 in the market. It took 4 years till 2007 to come back to $1 million. Then in 1 year, 2008, they saw a 40% drop down to 600,000. By the end of 2010, some of them still only had about 620,000, 700,000. It took 2 more years until 2012 to make back that loss from 2008. Now, I've mentioned our clients using indexing. In the 10-year period, their million doubled to 2 million, with 5 years earning 0. The other 5 years, they earned the index up to a cap 2 of the years. 7.23%, rule of 72, a million was worth 2 million, even if they fell asleep and woke up 10 years later and wondered what happened. Now, if you add 2 more years till 2012, our clients actually averaged 3 million for their million when most Americans were barely back up about 40 some odd thousand. I think it was 46,000. They had 1,046,000. Our clients had 3 million. That's because of rebalancing and linking to the index. So I've mentioned once before, but maybe it went over your head. From 2000 to 2010, I didn't earn 0 5 years. I only earned 0 2 years, 2001 and 2007. Because when the terrorist attacks happened and everybody stopped buying, luxury items, they stopped traveling, they stopped going out to dinner. That's exactly what the terrorists wanted to accomplish. And it sent this economy into a tailspin, and people were rubbernecking on the economic freeway. You don't have to sit there in 2002 and 2003 and just accept 0. If you did, you would have doubled your money in 10 years. No, you just go, oh, it looks like people are going to sort of play it safe for a couple of years. So I just said, move back over to the general account portfolio. By doing that, I earned at that time 5%. So instead of earning 0 in 2002, 2003, and 2008, I earned 5. That's better than 0. And then when the market started to come back up again, I go, link. So my average return by rebalancing went from 7.23% up to 10.07% by simply changing over to the general account portfolio and then back to linking to an index when the market started to turn around. How simple is that? It took an annual review. Only 10 times in that period did I meet, and only 3 or 4 of those years did I say, oh, let's change. The other times I said, let's leave it like it is. See, this does not require reading the Wall Street Journal every day to do this. So rebalancing took me from 7.23% in the worst decade up to 10.07%. But when you do this, you're able to tweak your returns by 2 or 3 percentage points in even some of the worst periods of time. So that's why many times when people are concerned about, golly, I would like to be able to take advantage of a boom market, a bullish market. I go, okay, well, I think that's where we're headed. If you are in agreement with me, let's link. Let's link 80%, 100%, but let's diversify. If we have any indicator that we're headed for a double dip recession or a downturn or a pandemic or something again, we go, ooh, the last time this happened, the market tanked for 1.5 years. Should we move over to the general account portfolio? Yeah, let's do that. This is what a savvy financial advisor can do for their clients. They may be happy with 7 or 8% tax-free. Most people would be. It's frankly double what most IRAs and 401ks earn that are invested in the market. But, I'm a perfectionist. I like to tweak my return more to 9 and 10%, and that is accomplished by not just using indexing, but by rebalancing often.